everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Katie and today I'm going to be giving my best advice, tips, and tricks for new writers. I've gotten a lot of comments from people saying that they are new or young writers, and it really means a lot when they say like my writing tips videos help them, because I have been writing for probably around 15 years now, and I've worked really hard to learn about writing and kind of work on craft and do the research and put in the work to get better. But at the same time, I am 19, so I still know what it's like to be like a young writer where people like don't really take you seriously and don't think that you know what you're talking about. So it really means a lot to me when younger and newer writers interact with my channel. It's really special, and I just thought I would give some advice today. But anyways, I think I have rambled enough, so let's get into the tips. My first tip is one that you may be tired of hearing, but that is read as much as you possibly can. Reading is so helpful when trying to improve your writing. When I read, I try to read like a writer, and by that I mean if the author uses a word that I like take a little note of that to use that later, or I'll kind of pay attention to the story structure, the sentence structure, and I just feel like it can be really helpful with learning how a story like comes together, if that makes sense. And you know, the more that you read and the more that you see completed and like well-rounded and well-structured stories, it becomes kind of like second nature. Like I've been reading my entire life, and at this point when I'm like plotting a story, like the story structure just comes naturally because I've read so many books. And like when you read so many books, like just structure and order becomes like obvious. Like you're like, oh, I know what's gonna happen next because this is what always happens next. And it's very helpful in a learning structure and craft kind of way, and also reading is really fun, so definitely read as much as you possibly can. My next tip is to commit to regular writing practice. Writing is just like any muscle. It's like any creative muscle. Specifically, you have to use it often, you have to exercise it. So I use the word commit because, you know, nobody feels like writing every day, all the time, but if you want to improve, if you want to work out your writing muscle, like you have to write often, like at least a couple times a week. Definitely figure out what works best for you, like what's a lot of writing for you, what does practicing writing look like for you. You definitely have to figure that out for yourself. For me, I try to work on one of my projects, like sit down with whatever draft I'm on and write, you know, at least 1,000 words. That's my goal. But if I'm like not feeling it, or I start to work on it and it's not good, I will switch to maybe doing character work, or I will try to brainstorm new plot ideas or like work on new stories. Just like work out that writing muscle often. Like that doesn't mean that you have to write every day and you have to write like millions of words in one sitting. Like sometimes I just listen to music and scroll through Pinterest and like get inspiration, but you have to exercise that creative muscle in some way. I try to like work out the creative muscle every day. I don't write every day, like sit down and work on the draft every day, but I try to do something creative every day just to keep it going. Now, you definitely can't just do, you know, Pinterest and making playlists and coming up with new ideas. You definitely have to work on your actual projects if you want to get done. I have another whole video on how to stay motivated if you wanted to check that out, but this tip is more just like you have to practice writing in some way. Like a few weeks ago, I was feeling stuck on my current project that I'm trying to finish, and so I was like, I need something to keep me in the creative mindset. So I got another story idea that I wanted to work on, and I kind of fleshed out the structure and kind of did that. Make sure that you're exercising your writing muscles as much as you can, whatever that looks like for you. Tip number 3 is to find a writing community, or just like find other people that you can talk about writing with and like your stories with. I feel like this is very helpful for motivation, because people, if you tell people about your book, then they will, you know, ask you how it's going and like keep you accountable. And also you can discuss writing things and give each other advice and tips, and like if you finish your draft or something, like you can give it to people to read it and give you feedback. Like just find a community of writers somehow. I feel like I have a pretty good group of writers who follow me, so you could subscribe. People are always talking about like their books and asking writing questions, and everyone's always helping each other in my comment sections. Also, you could follow my TikTok, which is basically Katie. People talk all about writing on there as well. But you could also make your own social media account where you post about your book, and just have people giving you feedback, and kind of that, just having that writing discussion is very helpful. It's very, very useful to get other people's opinions and thoughts on your writing, just on writing in general. There are like Discord channels out there that you can join where people discuss writing. I feel like with writing, it's very nice to just have a community where you can bounce things off of each other, if that makes any sense. My 4th tip is to write what you know. Again, you might have heard this before, but I feel like it's very useful to write what you know, especially when you're kind of like new to writing, because the whole idea of like world building and plotting out a whole like new fantasy realm might sound really, really fun, but I will speak from my experience. I used to come up with like fantasy worlds when I was younger, and it's just, I never got anywhere because there was so much research that had to go into it because I didn't know what I was talking about. But then when I would write about, like, I played volleyball for 7 years, I wrote this one story that was like a girl on the volleyball team, and I wrote like a couple thousand words into that one at age like 11, because that was something that I knew, that was something that I was passionate about. Like, write something that you know. I'm not saying you can never write like fantasy, because obviously writing fantasy is so fun. I totally understand. I'm just saying, if you feel like a story is maybe too big and like you don't know what you're talking about, maybe break it down and start smaller, because like now I feel like I can write stuff that I don't really know a lot about, because I spent all those years writing stuff that I did know and really working on story structure, sentence structure, my writing voice. And then when I felt comfortable with that, I felt like I could branch out into things that I had to research and learn about. But I would not take on huge daunting projects if you're just getting started. I would take on something that you know, like the volleyball thing for me. Like, I went to volleyball every day, I played volleyball every day, like I knew everything that I needed to know about that, and then I just built a plot around that kind of world, and it was definitely much easier than trying to write about something that I had no clue like what I was even talking about. I would say you can definitely have like big stories that you're working on, but definitely have maybe smaller projects that you kind of go to practice craft and exercise the writing muscle, like I was saying. I just find sometimes that really daunting like projects, you can find yourself in like a rabbit hole of just researching and learning, and you never actually write. And the way that you get better writing is you just have to write. So writing stuff that you know definitely helps the act of writing not feel so overwhelming. My next tip is to try different writing styles out. Try different types of stories. Try just try out things. This kind of goes hand in hand with the writing muscle thing. Like, just try things. If you normally write short stories, try to write a novel. If you normally write full-length novels, try to write a short story, or try to write a poem, or try to write a screenplay. Like, I know that this tip kind of goes against what I just said of write what you know, but you could write, you know, a short story or a poem about something that you know a lot about. But I'm just saying, like, if you're new to writing, like, just test things out, see what really clicks with you and what you really enjoy and what you're good at. Find what you're good at. You're never gonna, you know, figure that out if you don't test different techniques. Another tip that I have is to be open to critique. I mentioned getting feedback in my earlier tip of find a writing community, but like open your work up to critique. With like art and creative things, it's never gonna get better if you don't have other people's feedback. Writing is a very lonely thing because you come up with these worlds and these characters in your head, and it's very personal and it's very often self-reflective and vulnerable, and that's why it's so scary to give advice, because it kind of feels like if somebody says they don't like your writing, it feels like they're saying that they hate you and they think you should die. I 100% understand, but you're never going to improve if you don't get other people's feedback. I would say open up your writing once you feel comfortable, once it's, you know, finished or far enough along or whatever. Just like open it up to somebody that you trust. Like for me, I tell my family about ideas or my best friend because I feel very comfortable with them. I definitely wouldn't like send out my story to random strangers on the internet at like the beginning stages. I would say early on, just open up to people that you love and that you trust and know aren't gonna hurt your feelings. Like when I hand my work to my mother, like she's not going to like hurt my feelings purposefully. A lot of the time, beta readers and critique partners on the internet, like that are people they don't know, can be a little bit straightforward under the guise of being helpful, but a lot of the time that's not really helpful. In earlier stages of your book or of your writing career, sometimes getting that harsh critique is just not helpful. You just kind of need feedback, not critique. You definitely have to be open to letting people read what you wrote and kind of give feedback, because how are you going to know what you need to improve on and what you're good at unless people tell you? Because we don't know. Us as writers, we think that we are the best writer on the planet and the worst writer on the planet at the same exact time. So we're never going to get an unbiased opinion from ourselves. And obviously if you give your books to loved ones, it's not going to be completely unbiased because they love you, but they don't know that story. They don't know that world. They don't know those characters like you do. So they'll give a little bit more constructive while still caring feedback. So yes, be open to critique, but don't like ask for critique if you're not ready. And if you are ready, maybe ease in with friends and family or people that you know aren't gonna hurt your feelings first. My next tip is a little maybe unconventional. I don't know how many people just kind of hand out this advice, but I'm gonna tell you to write fan fiction. For me, when I really started taking writing seriously was when I started writing fan fiction in middle school. I would write fan fiction about things that I really was passionate about, and so I already had that like passion and excitement about the world and the characters, and then I got to kind of insert my own characters, or I would do like an alternate universe kind of thing. And like the first stories that I ever completed, like wrote from beginning to end, were fan fictions. And I definitely think that it can be helpful with improving, because how you improve is you just have to write. Writing fan fiction can also be helpful because there's already a world, there's already established characters with established character traits, so it's pretty easy to like jump right in and just kind of start writing about them. And that was really helpful for me at a time when I just really needed to work on finding my voice, finding how I liked to tell stories, was writing in a world that already existed. So that's why I like find fanfiction so helpful. Also, if you publish your fanfiction on Wattpad or AO3 or fanfiction.net or Tumblr or any of those things, you can get feedback from other people and they'll kind of talk to you about your writing. And for me at least, fanfiction feels a little bit less personal than letting people read my original ideas and my original characters. I don't know if that's true for everyone, but it feels a little less personal for me. So it's less scary when you get those comments. And fanfic readers leave the funniest comments. So yeah, I just think writing fanfiction can be really helpful for improving your writing because everything's already kind of set up for you to just insert your storyline into, and there's not a lot of like research that you have to do if you're writing about a fandom that you already know and already love. I like hardcore wrote fanfiction for like 5 years probably, and I definitely improved so much during that time because I was just writing so much, and that's how you get better, is you just write so much. And I feel like fanfiction is a very like safe, kind of easy place to practice and experiment with things and just get better. And then my last and final tip is study writing craft. It sounds kind of daunting when people are like, learn craft, because you're like, what are you talking about? But for me, how I kind of got into it was I signed up for writing classes in my like around where I live, and I would go to like these day-long things where writers and teachers would talk about craft and give you exercises to apply it. So those were helpful. So I would say look for classes. You can also just find free videos online. I know I've plugged my own channel so many times in this, but I do post a lot of writing tips. I posted a whole video about how to plot if you wanted to check that out. Like, just learn about how a story is made. There are no rules when it comes to writing, but there's like a helpful structure and guide and like way that things are done. The more and more that I learned about writing, the better my writing got, because it just becomes second nature. It just like kind of goes in subconsciously eventually, and you don't even have to think. You're just doing it. Yeah, and I love writing. Like, I love learning about writing. It's not a chore for me to, you know, read articles about it, to watch videos about it, to make videos about it. It's not a chore. It's really fun, and honestly, it inspires me and gets me excited and makes me want to write. So it's helpful in that way as well. But yeah, definitely study. I'm using that word loosely. Like, watch some YouTube videos about writing. Like, that's really all you gotta do. And don't be like against structure. I know for me, when I was younger, I did not like people telling me what to do. I was like, I will write whatever I want and however I want. And I do still feel that way. But learning story structure, learning sentence structure, learning more about like English and grammar as I got older, like, it makes writing easier, and it just becomes second nature, and it feels good to know what you're doing. Like, it does. Yes, definitely learn a lot about writing, but also don't learn too much about writing. Hear me out. Like, don't feel like you have to know everything before you can start. That's not true. I'm just saying, like, watch videos and listen to other people that know about craft, so that you can continue to improve, but don't get like overwhelmed and feel like you have to know exactly how to do everything before you can even like start writing, because that's not true at all. You can always fix something that you already wrote. You can never fix a blank page. So if you wrote an entire story when you were 13 and then you learned a bunch about craft and you're like, I'm gonna restructure this, like you already had the story. That's the part that matters. Like you have to write. I mean, that's the biggest tip of all, is just how you get better at writing is you just keep doing it. But yeah, I hope that last tip made sense. Like learn, but don't feel like you have to know it all. Hope that was coherent. Well, that's all for today's video. I hope that this advice was helpful. Honestly, it was kind of helpful for me to like make this list because you just need to be reminded of basics sometimes. First, when you first get into writing and you first discover how incredible it is, I mean, there's no feeling like it. It's just so fun and exhilarating to discover writing and to come up with new ideas. Like still to this day, I mean, I've been writing for forever and still like it's so exciting and it's so fun, and I love hearing people getting into it, and I just hope that they, you know, have as much fun as I do because, you know, it's the best. But anyways, enough being sappy. I hope this video was helpful and I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, you should leave a like so that I know to do more videos like this. If you have any questions, if you're like a new or young writer and you have any questions, you should definitely comment below because I will answer, and also other people who maybe have been writing longer will also answer. I love when I post a writing video and people start like discussing things and helping each other in the comments. It's just the best thing ever. So definitely do that. I'll give advice the best that I can. I don't know if anybody will, but if you have any specific questions, I will put my TikTok and my Instagram on the screen, and my like private messages and my comment sections are always open. If you wanted to ask me something, I would love to help people with story ideas. Like if you're stuck on something, I love to like discuss writing in that way, and it can be really helpful to bounce ideas off of somebody else. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. You should subscribe if you like kind of writing content. I also post a lot of like bookish content. I do reading vlogs, book recommendation videos, and then obviously I do writing tips, writing vlogs, writing advice kind of videos. If that's something that you like, you should subscribe. I post every week. Yeah. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you have a really great day.